Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy the story. Remember to like and subscribe. And now the story.
I'll start this off by saying my ex is vindictive as hell. We've been fully divorced since about right before the pandemic started. We sold the house we shared, and I didn't have to pay her alimony because she cheated and we're in an at-fault state. It was messy since D-Day. All of the stereotypes. First the sobbing and then trickle truths saying I love you. It was just one time. Okay, it was 2 years. And then the gaslighting followed by I'm going to take you for everything before packing her shit and walking out. I feel like I never really knew the woman my ex was in all the time we were together. We were married 5 years and together for 7. And in 2 of those 5 married years, she had affairs with 3 other men. The final one being a foreign businessman of some sort from what I could find out. Yes, I got tested for STDs and was thankfully negative. Yes, she got pregnant by the final AP. And no, I didn't sign the birth certificate because I found out about the all affairs before the baby was born, thanks to a call from the first AP. My ex tried to go full scorched earth on me. But since we live in and were married in an at-fault state, she lost. We didn't pay equally into our house, and the equity was divided 70-30. So I got a pretty good cash payout when I sold our marital home to put as a down payment on a different house, closer to my job. It's a bit of a downgrade, but suits a single guy in his 30s like me just fine. My ex did show up to my house once, but I refused to let her in. She bitched at me that I'd financially ruined her in the divorce. I said that if she was fully willing to do that to me first, and the bitch had the audacity to say it should have been my life FKD over and not hers. I laughed so hard and said it was karma. She yelled that she'd sue me for what was rightfully hers. I said if she was gonna sue me, then to go ahead and sue me. It'd end up the same way in court because she has nothing but a false sob story. She was the cheater, not me. I'm no angels that I didn't do anything to her. And she was the one who ruined our marriage. She then said she'd tell everyone she could that I abused her. I said I'd sue her for defamation if she did, and I was recording our interaction and had those words saved to my phone. She went wide-eyed and her jaw dropped. The look people are calling the surprised Pikachu face. Then I asked why she was there, if not to just try and make trouble. Because she had a new man in her life that knocked her up. She just huffed at me and said he isn't around much, and she's stuck in a tiny apartment living off his child support till he comes back. It was immature of me, I know, but I did the bit of playing the world's smallest violin. She yelled at me to go F myself, and I yelled back that I'd sooner do that than her any time. She raged at me and then got in her car to leave. Haven't seen her since. There is an HOA in my neighborhood. But I was not legally obligated to join it because the last owner of my house was not a member. I made sure of that through a real estate lawyer as well. The HOA had no grounds to force me to join and were not happy about it. The HOA president would show up with forms every week for the first month, demanding I sign them. Then she threatened to take me to court, to which I had to get a C&D sent to her from my lawyer to make her stop that. So she started harassing me by looking for any infractions she possibly could to report to the city. An inspector came out several times and found nothing wrong. In fact, I offered one of them a burger while grilling, and they graciously accepted. Did I mention the HOA hates barbecues and parties that aren't approved in advance? Well, they do. And I like to grill when the weather is good. And my neighbors actually love me for it because I invite them over. I had the police called on me several times for noise complaints because I was playing music on a Saturday afternoon while having my friends over. The HOA president I caught trespassing once when she was trying to peer into my windows. I called the police, but she denied ever doing it. So I got cameras. She hasn't trespassed since. But I still got repeated passive-aggressive letters saying my cameras were not an approved addition to my house. Some months ago, I started getting letters for fines in the mail. And when I contacted the HOA, their representative claimed they had it on record that I'd joined and needed to pay all fees effective immediately. I told them that was not possible. Then they emailed a scanned copy of the forms, and they had a signature on them. But it was not mine. It was very similar in some ways, and I recognized right away as being my ex's handwriting. She knew what my signature looked like. But it was a loose imitation at best. I got in touch with a lawyer right away over the forged signature. But the HOA still demanded to go to court. And it took 7 months before that happened. Meanwhile, they were stacking unpaid fines against me weekly and were threatening to put a lien on my house. We went to court, and the HOA president looked very smug. But my lawyer pointed out the signature wasn't the same as mine and was very inconsistent in the various forms. I'd never allowed the HOA president in my house, and I'd never requested the forms. The idiot HOA president actually slammed her palm on the table and said it was still binding. But when pressed where the fraudulent signature came from, she admitted my ex-wife called the HOA, and they sent her the forms, then got them back in the mail signed. But then she actually claimed she'd thought I'd signed them. The judge looked at her and asked if she was serious. She confirmed she was. The judge then asked how a woman I was no longer married to, that had never even lived with me in my current residence, was supposed to have any bearing on whether or not I joined her. She went quiet, and I could see the "oh shit" look on her face as the hamster wheels were turning, and she seemed to finally mentally put the pieces together. My lawyer then counterclaimed that what the HOA did was blatant fraud and legal actions must be taken. And they were. I countersued the HOA for the emotional distress of the harassment I'd gotten since moving in, which I had lots of proof of. That won me about 10 grand after lawyer fees that I decided to put towards my mortgage. The HOA president was removed from her throne. I like to think she was kicking and screaming. She was also slapped with a hefty fine. I've seen her outside a few times, and she always looks at me like I am the devil. The HOA itself had to pay all of my legal fees too. I wanted to go after my ex for forging my signature. But can't, because not long after she forged my signature on those forms, she apparently left the country to be with her third AP. She's somewhere in Europe from what I can see of the final posts on her FB before she disappeared. So I can't do anything against her unless she ever returns to the US. So that was a wash. I'm not getting letters from the HOA anymore though. And the new president has promised to keep things completely cordial from now on. I still don't feel like I got much of a win in this though. Other than the $10K payout, it all felt like a huge waste of time. Dude, lemme tell ya, living in a gated community ain't always the paradise people make it out to be. Like 2 years back, we got this new HOA board, and man, they've been nothing but trouble since day one. Like seriously, they're always on our case about every little thing, you know? It's like they're obsessed with rules or something. It's been a real headache dealing with them. First off, these folks decided to double up on the HOA fees. Now I ain't no mathematician, but that just don't add up, especially when they're talking about cutting back on maintenance for the common areas. They claim they're still spending the same amount, but I ain't buying it. They won't even let us see the dang books, which makes me think they're up to something fishy. And don't even get me started on them extra fees for road fixing. Like seriously? Last I checked, ain't that the city's job, not ours? But nah, these bigwigs in the HOA, they think they can just squeeze every penny out of us for any old thing. It's like they got their hands in our pockets and won't let go. They don't care about us, regular folks, just trying to get by. It's enough to make you want to scream, I tell ya. Now the fines just wow. Things like fined us for having a broken mailbox, for leaving our trash cans out too long, for having a dog that barked too much, for having a car that was too old, for having a lawn that was too long, for having a fence that was too short, for having a flag that was too big, for having us too political. Then, even stupider, for having a kid that played too rough, for having a bike that was too bright, for having a flower that was too exotic, for having a bird feeder that attracted too many birds, for having a solar panel that was too shiny. They're handing out fines left and right for the smallest stuff without even giving folks a chance to fix it. That ain't right, I tell ya.
Ain't that against the bylaws or CC&Rs or whatever?
But the straw that broke the camel's back. They decided we don't need a guard at the gate after 11 p.m.
Can you believe that?
They said something about good Christians being in bed by then, but I ain't buying it. Problem is, they shut the whole dang gate down. Can't nobody get in or out, not even emergency vehicles. Just the other day there's a fire, right?
And them fire trucks, bless 'em, they couldn't even get in.
Nobody's picking up the dang phone at the gate, so what happens? The police gotta bust into the guard hut, like they're breaking into a dang bank vault just to open the gate. It's a straight up mess, I'm telling ya. Like, how are we supposed to feel safe in our own neighborhood when emergency services can't even get through? It's a total disaster, plain and simple. We done voted these HOA folks out, but they ain't going down without a fight. They say we rigged the election and faked votes and all that jazz.
So now we're stuck in the middle of lawsuits and all sorts of mess.
All we want is access to them dang books, for them to pack up and leave, and for the bylaws to get a good old-fashioned makeover so this mess don't happen again.
But who knows how this'll all turn out?
All I know is I'm ready for some peace and quiet, and maybe a little less HOA drama in my life. And let me tell ya, it ain't just a saga. It's a full-blown nightmare. Every day feels like a battle fighting against these HOA bigwigs who think they own the place. Lord knows we're just trying to keep our heads above water, but it's like swimming against a tide of bureaucracy and greed.
You can feel the tension in the air, neighbors turning against each other, all because of a few power-hungry suits mucking things up.
I swear if I could, I'd wave a magic wand and poof, I'm out of here faster than you can say homeowners association.
But alas, we're stuck in this mess, praying for a miracle to set things right.
So here's hoping the tide turns in our favor soon.
Lord help us all indeed.
I've lived in this cozy little rental property for over a decade now. It's nothing fancy, just a modest apartment with a tiny balcony that overlooks the courtyard. But it's been home, and I've grown attached to the view of the gnarled old oak tree and the distant city skyline. The homeowners association has always been a bit of a thorn in my side.
They're like the neighborhood hall monitors, patrolling the premises with clipboards and stern expressions.
Their rule book is thicker than a brick, and they wield it like a weapon. So when that ominous white envelope arrived in our mailbox, I knew trouble was brewing.
Violation notice, unauthorized shade extension, it read.
I unfolded the paper, my heart sinking as I scanned the words.
Apparently, our freestanding outdoor umbrella, a simple white canopy that shielded us from the blazing sun, was the culprit. The HOA had decided that our little slice of shade was an eyesore, an affront to their meticulously manicured aesthetic. No item can extend beyond the vertical plane, as defined by the inner edge of the balcony rail.
Linguistics, they said, as if they were unraveling the mysteries of the universe.
But it's a F-in umbrella, for crying out loud.
When we're not outside, we dutifully close it, tucking it away like a well-behaved child. But when the sun beats down, we unfurl it, and yes, sometimes it stretches beyond the inner rail. It's physics, not defiance.
And here's the kicker. Our balcony is the size of a postage stamp.
You could barely fit a yoga mat out there, let alone a sprawling umbrella.
It's like trying to stuff a giraffe into a matchbox. Impossible. But rules are rules, and the HOA enforcers don't care about practicality. They're on a mission to maintain the illusion of perfection. I surveyed the courtyard. Other units flaunted their rebelliousness too. Umbrellas, shades, potted plants, all extending their boundaries like little acts of defiance.
The geraniums spilled over their pots, the wind chimes tinkled merrily, and the president herself had storage boxes stacked on her patio.
Tisk, tisk indeed.
Selective enforcement, I muttered, snapping photos of the evidence. 12 violations meticulously documented.
I felt like a rogue detective gathering proof against the HOA overlords. Maybe I'd create a PowerPoint presentation for the appeal.
Slide 1. The Great Umbrella Conspiracy. But then came the unnerving twist. One sunny afternoon, as my family and I lounged on our balcony, I noticed movement across the courtyard.
A figure lurking in the shadows of the communal garden.
Someone was taking pictures of us.
The camera lens pointed directly at our tiny oasis of rebellion. "Creepy," my daughter whispered, clutching her juice box. She was right.
It felt invasive, like a peephole into our private moments.
I imagined the HOA's secret dossier. Subject: umbrella extender.
Suspected shade smuggler. I confronted the voyeur, my voice trembling with indignation.
"Who are you? Why are you spying on us?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a stern face framed by graying hair.
The HOA president herself. She held the camera like a weapon, ready to fire off another violation notice.
"You're in violation," she declared, her tone icy.
The umbrella. The rail? Linguistics. I clenched my fists.
"We have rights, you know."
We can appeal, and you keep saying linguistics like you just learned a new word. Sorry, that makes no sense. It does too make sense, so appeal all you want, she retorted.
"But remember, rules are rules." And there it was, the heart of the matter.
Rules rigid and unyielding.
But what about common sense? What about compassion? What about the joy of a lazy afternoon under our rebellious umbrella?
As I prepared my appeal, I glanced at my daughter. Her innocent eyes held a question. Are we wrong?
Maybe we were.
But sometimes, just sometimes, it's the rebels who keep the world from becoming too rigid, too predictable. So, armed with my photos and a stubborn spirit, I vowed to fight.
For our umbrella.
For our postage stamp balcony.
For the right to stretch beyond the inner rail.
And if the HOA didn't like it? Well, they could stick their linguistics where the sun didn't shine, preferably under our defiant canopy.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.